Well, hey, class. Here we are diving into week 2. Week 1 for me is kind of the fun week. I tell you that. I enjoy the study and the digging into the text and doing what you've done is something, is part of my rhythm week in and week out. I go through the constructs, whether it's Hebrew or Greek. In this case, it's Hebrew. And I am no Hebrew scholar, but I have enough helps and enough background and enough experience that I love digging in and finding out what are the nuances of the words. How does the text flow? Where's the broader context of the story? You've done all that this week. You've made some really good exegetical observations. I would imagine by now you've either agreed with or debated the commentaries, and you've put together kind of an exegetical analysis of the passage that we're going to deal with, and you've looked at it in the broader context of the meta-narrative that we call the story of redemption. You have been climbing the exegetical mountain. And Matthewson's reading that you're going to do this week, or maybe you've done it, he talks about a book by Jon Krakauer dealing with a failed expedition on Mount Everest. I read that book several years ago, and Krakauer's thesis is it's not just the summit, it's the descent. And the descent is the most important part. And you got to get back down to where you live. I am not a mountain climber. I have only ascended one peak in my life. It was all 105 feet of Indian Rock Hill in the middle of Salina, Kansas. So I am not a mountain climber, but I am an exegetical mountain climber. And I know when I've gotten to this point where I have just got all this research in my head, all this stuff that just excites me about how the language fits and the context and the history and everything. And if some of you've traveled to the Holy Land, so now you've got that living word picture of being at the Valley of Elah and seeing how close those two raised areas are, and they're not like mountains at all, and you've been there and you've seen that. And now you have to take all of that work and all of that research, and you need to bring it down into a single big idea. I think Haddon Robinson calls it a rifle shot as opposed to a shotgun. You need to tell the sermon in a sentence. You need to take everything that you've done and you need to make it palatable to an audience that does not have the advantage of all the research that you've done. You need to make it hearable. Are they going to engage with it? You need to make it applicable to a 21st century audience. You need to help them see how it fits in to the meta-narrative of redemption. I believe this week is the hardest week of sermon preparation because it's not what you put into the sermon. It's really the decision of what do I leave out. What are the things I've learned that are great and amazing and blow my mind that are going to leave my particular audience looking at me like a deer in headlights, wondering, who is this guy and what is he talking about? And the challenge in preaching is to descend the exegetical mountain and live on the ground where everybody else does. In my check-in this week, I'm going to give you my thoughts about how we use the language in preaching. I'm very much in alignment with what Dr. Matthewson says in his book, and I'll just share with you a little bit of how I do it and what I do and in helping my people understand the nuances of the language, and yet at the same time, I don't want them to ever think that because they don't have the education or the background that I have, that they can't open the Bible and read it for themselves. And we walk that fine line of explaining and drawing them into the text, but also encouraging them to be into the text themselves. So this is a great week. I'm going to post the pages that you'll need to read or the sections you'll need to read in Matthewson for those of you who are doing electronic reading, along with this announcement. I am really looking forward to how you take this very familiar story and make it unique and interesting and engaging for the congregation to whom you will preach. Every sermon will be a bit different in its approach, because you have exegeted your people as you have exegeted the Word of God, and you know how to bring it to bear on what their needs are. So looking forward to it. Feel free to reach out with questions or concerns. I'm very accessible in that regard. If you have a little bit of a outline going and you just want to know what I think about it, that's not a gradable thing. That's a professor-student thing. I will interact with you as much as you need to walk you through this process. So I am looking forward to seeing what you come up with your outline and your manuscript this week. God bless. Have a great week of study.